Hi, I'm David Ezekiel, interim pastor for the Congregational Church of Batavia. Craig Barnes, president of Princeton Theological Seminary, wrote a message that I have adapted somewhat for our context. Dr. Barnes helps me to note that the longer we shelter in place, the more I think about belonging. In aspiring to be a covenant community, our church is claiming that we want to belong to each other as we belong to the God who has made covenants of love, grace, and commitment with us. CCOB has long stressed our devotion to being a residential community of faith and scholarship. So staying at home to engage in worship, mission, and service is not something that comes naturally to us, but we're now sheltering because that is what loving our neighbors looks like, at least for today. Still, it makes us yearn for the future when we can return to being physically together again with the people to whom we belong. But the pandemic has also revealed how much we belong to people we don't even know. It has exposed our radical dependence on one another and our created relatedness with all humanity, a vision that God has always seen, but we too often miss. People working on the front lines in hospitals and grocery stores and delivery trucks understand that we belong to one another, and so they put themselves in harm's way to serve others. Their example calls all of us to see in new ways the breadth of those to whom we belong, as siblings in the human family. We belong to the elderly and those with compromised immune systems, who are most vulnerable to this virus. That's the primary reason we are sheltering in place, to protect the vulnerable. We also belong to the children in Batavia and the surrounding community who are going without the healthy lunches provided by their closed public schools. And I am proud that the nearby school systems with which our members and participants attend are providing hundreds of lunches each week. And I am proud of us, the Congregational Church of Batavia, for contributing to food banks and distribution centers in our area. And it is great that we are looking after and caring for the children to whom we belong. This is also what loving our neighbors looks like today. We belong to Asians and Asian Americans who continue to experience prejudicial hate rhetoric and hate crimes because they are falsely blamed for the pandemic. Looking for someone to accuse when we experience hardship has long been one of humanity's great vices, and it is rearing its ugly head again. And I have recently joined the Asian Association in signing the statement on anti-Asian racism in the time of COVID-19. This statement denounces racism and calls us to embrace Jesus' healing work, which embodies the interdependence and kinship of all people. It has accumulated thousands of signatures, and I encourage you to considering adding your name as well. The link is attached to this emailed blog. We belong to the African American community that is dying from this virus at vastly disproportionate levels. The systemic injustice that makes some communities more vulnerable to this public health crisis is a sin. To love these neighbors means committing ourselves to ensure that all people have access to the medical care, job security, and opportunities they need to flourish, as well as anyone else in our society. We also belong to the nations of the world that are facing this crisis on unequal footing, without the medical equipment and resources to combat the rapid spread of the virus, which leaves entire populations vulnerable to devastating loss. These are also our siblings in the family of God. Quite a bit is being written about how we will come through this pandemic differently than we entered it. My prayer is that part of that difference will be that the church will come to see that our mission is not to make contributions to distant people when it is affordable, but to care for all humanity to whom we belong. Thank you, Craig, for helping us think about these things. Grace and peace and love to you this day.